All right, cuties, I wanted to talk to you about a few basics for interviewing. These things are more fundamental than a lot of what the Harvard career advisor talks to you about. But this is what I would tell you if we were in class, in addition to some of the stuff that she says. Okay, so the first thing is that when you go in to interview, offer your hand to anyone who's interviewing you. You don't need to shake the hand of the receptionist at the front. But whomever is interviewing you, whether it's a group interview or individual, you want to shake hands. And when you shake hands, you need to practice with people so that you have an appropriate handshake. You are not the Queen of England, so you're not offering your hand like this to be kissed or whatever. Also, I've seen some people do like the really aggressive handshake where it's like they're trying to break the other person's knuckles. Or I don't know if you've ever seen President Trump shake someone's hand when he's like kind of annoyed with them, but he does this like seesaw thing. Don't do that. We just want to have like a couple of like firm, like, okay, and then you let it go. And you should also probably shake hands on the way out of the room too, or if they walk you to the door, shake their hand at the door. You want to appear as normal as possible for an interview. And I'm not trying to like crush your personal style or whatever, but they want to see that whomever they are hiring is going to be low maintenance, is going to fit into the environment very easily. So generally, you don't want to wear anything that's going to be super dramatic. So I normally just advise white button-down shirt or blouse with black pants or black skirt, and the skirt needs to be conservative, okay, so not something that's like way high up, not a super short skirt, and I'll talk about why in a second. The only exception is if you are doing a video interview, then you might want to wear brighter colors, but again, still solids, okay, so that you don't want to walk in wearing your like Rasta shirt or whatever, where they're going to draw some conclusions about you that may not be what they want. And black sensible shoes. If all you have is like black lace-up shoes, okay. If you are one of my girls, then don't wear like the super high heels. That's like something you would wear out clubbing. Wear something that's appropriate for a workplace. So I used to manage a tutoring center. And so I did a lot of hiring there. And I had a woman who came in one time. This is a tutoring center for kids from 4 years old through 18. And I had a woman, a credentialed teacher, who came in to hire, and she was wearing a super low cut top and a matching super high cut skirt. And of course, like my male coworkers were salivating over her, but I was like, I can't hire this person. She clearly has such poor judgment that why would I put her in a room with children? So number one, you don't want to wear something that's a little too revealing that sends the message that you don't have great judgment. Number two, you don't want your bosses to get the false impression of what you're offering in order to get the job. You want to make eye contact with everybody who's interviewing you as much as possible. You don't want to like bore your eyes into their skull, but that you're clearly paying attention to what they're saying. You want to smile, not like deranged, but even if you're just listening to them talk, kind of having like this squinty, like smiling eyes indicates that you are a nice person. You want to have straight posture in your chair. This does not look like somebody who's going to work hard. Okay, so you want to have nice, I'm ready to work posture. And relaxed hands. I've seen people do this while they're interviewing. I've seen people like repeatedly rub their face nervously when they're interviewing, drum or tap. I understand if you're nervous, but if so, just relax your hands and maybe like rub one of your thumbs with the other thumb or something to release the tension. But you don't want to be doing this because it doesn't convey confidence. So we want to have like just relaxed hands. Common interview questions are things that my students often ask me about. What should I say if? So one of the first things is what to say if you don't have experience and you need the job to get experience. So if they ask if you have relevant experience, you can talk about things that you've done that are relevant, even though they're not paid. So sure, maybe you haven't worked in a fast food restaurant before, but you do a lot of the cooking at home and you have 11 brothers and sisters, and so you are used to cooking quickly and under pressure. Maybe you haven't worked in an office environment before, but you do a lot of collaborative learning with other students, and so you're used to group projects. No, Levi. No. And so you're used to collaborating with other people and relying on one another's strengths in order to deliver a project on time. So you can bring in relevant experience. Don't pretend that it was paid if it wasn't. Acknowledge that this was not in environment X, it was in environment Y, but here's a related experience, okay? Let's say you have a situation where they're asking about your availability and hours and you're like, shoot, because you're worried that this is going to be a problem for you because you've got classes all of these times and you're only available to work these times. You want to focus on the positive. So tell them the truth. Don't lie and say that you're available more than you are. Tell them the truth about when you're available, but emphasize that while your hours are, you have very set availability during school session, you are more available on holidays and other times when other workers might not want to work as much because you will be out of school at that time, so you'll be more available. So try to emphasize the positive there. One of the biggest questions that employers like to ask is, why do you want to work here? Or why should we hire you? Something like this. And this question really puts people on the spot. So here's what you need to understand. Employers have to invest a lot to hire someone new, okay? It takes time. They have to train that person. That takes time and money, right? They're taking a risk when they hire someone. So they won't do that unless they have to. Generally, employers will choose to keep their business running understaffed, overworking their other employees instead of hiring someone new. So if they're to the point where they're interviewing you, there's got to be something where they have a significant need. And your job is to convince them that you're the right person to fill that need. So instead of talking about, well, I want to work here to get paid, or I want to work here to just have an easy job where I don't have to think, or something a little overly honest like that, focus on the job for which you are interviewing, the skills that you bring to it, and solving your potential employer's pain or difficulty or need that they have right then. So a student 3 years ago told me, as we were in the last week of school, she said, I'm interviewing at SeaWorld and I don't know what to say in the interview. And I said, well, you're convincing them that you're going to solve problems for them and you're going to be focused on the job. And so we practiced, and the job she was interviewing for was to be like a parking lot attendant. And so we rehearsed together, and then when she interviewed, they asked her, why do you want to work here? And she said, well, I like working with people, and I'm looking forward to greeting SeaWorld customers in a friendly way and quickly helping them park so that they can get into SeaWorld and start enjoying their day. So that solves their problem, right? She's focused exactly on what they need. That's the kind of answer I would like you to have for that interview question. When they ask you about strengths and weaknesses, be honest, okay? For your strengths, what are you really good at? And for your weaknesses, be honest. It's great if you can mention a weakness that used to be an issue and then you talk about how you solved it or how you've overcome it or how you deal with it. Don't, I'm so smart that no one can stand to be around me, or my weakness is I work too hard, or something dumb like that. The humble brags are not the way to go. So for me, you guys know how I am with details. So I could say, well, one of my weaknesses is that I tend to get overly focused on details. So what I try to do is work in a group where my coworkers can help me focus on achieving the big picture so I don't get overly focused on details. And then that's an honest answer, and it tells them also about why I work better in a team environment. Conflicts in the workplace. If they ask you about how you solved a conflict in the workplace, this is tricky because you really don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that B word at your last job and she stole your purse and your boyfriend. You don't want to get into all of that. It's too much and it's not going to make you look good, okay? So if there's a question about conflicts in the workplace, you want to keep it short and sweet, and you want to focus on the solution, okay? That there was a person who didn't seem to enjoy working with you. You made overtures. You asked this person if you guys could talk about it. They rejected that. You invited them to go to lunch with you. they rejected that. And so the way you resolved it was just by being polite and professional to them and not letting their, attitude bother you at all because you were focused on the job. So like focus on the positive if you're going to answer a question about conflict. And then if they ask you, what do you know about our company? Hopefully you did some research so that you can say, well, I know that you provide X for people or whatever it might be. So your ultimate messages when you're interviewing need to be about how you're going to help the company work better. You're going to solve the problem for them. You're not overtly saying, hey, I'm not going to take a ton of training or I'm not going to cause a lot of drama or whatever, but that's the message you're sending with your answers to their questions about your skills and your experience and how you've handled conflict and things like that. If they are confident that you are not going to bring in like a bunch of personal stuff, but you're just going to be focused on the job, that reduces their hiring costs. They're not going to have to hire someone else 2 months after you. And you also want to be communicating that you're a friendly person and easy to work with. Okay, I hope this helped.